Good evening, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome to you all, especially those of you who are not currently watching Leicester versus Nottingham Forest. Maybe you've got a second screen. Maybe I shouldn't flag up that the game is currently live. Welcome anyway. It feels like a long time since we've done one of these. We did do a podcast just before, at the start of the international break. We don't normally do them in the international break, but it was audio only. So I hope you've subscribed to your audio feeds, and that way you'll be able to have caught it because we didn't video it. So I hope you caught that. And we're back this week, which is exciting. Obviously, I will try and share the pod recording on Facebook, which I've just now found, which is great. So I will try and do that now. Who have we got on tonight? I hear you say, well, here you are. We have Dan Brigham there looking all smiley and happy and a slightly blue tinge. And there we have Susannah, who's sat on the end of her bed by the looks of things, so that's exciting. She went to Blackpool, so that's exciting as well. We'll be talking to her about all of that. I'm going to share this with the Facebook world, which is always exciting. So yeah, we'll talk about the Blackpool game, which is great, of course. There'll be lots of things we are not going to talk about, and we'll talk about those. And of course, we've got the big October month start that we can also talk about, because it's a big month until the next one. Although, of course, there aren't really any games in November. So this will definitely be the biggest month until December. Although that's only half a month too. So actually, this case, the hyperbole works. So that's exciting. Almost done with this. Please get your questions and comments in. I'm going to try and keep an eye on them as we go through. So will Dan, hopefully. So get your questions in and we'll try and address some of those, because I'm not going to lie, I've rattled through the podcast script quite quickly and it's there. And, there's some topics to talk about, but you may well come up with some that we won't mention. And I would like for you to add those to the mix so that we cover all bases, because heaven help us should we actually not talk about something. And also, if you missed me hosting the TIFO podcast the other week, then go listen to that, because that was lots of fun. And hopefully I'll get to do it again. Maybe. Right. All done. We're all here. Everyone's ready. That only took a couple of minutes. I'm seamless at it all. Let's have some introductory music, and then let's crack on with this week's On The Ball podcast. I hope you love it. Hope you enjoy it. See you on the other side. Boom. Not that one. Almost played the wrong clip at practice. Here we go. Hello all and welcome to edition 114 of On The Ball, the Norwich City podcast that is here, back from Blackpool and ready to go again. I'm Michael Bailey. I cover the Canaries for The Athletic, and I hope this finds you safe and well. On the way, Pleasure Beach, Cruel to Be Kind. Oh, how many times have I used that? And Big Month Latest. Yes, you can tell I spent a lot of time putting those together. We will work through all that and more with our guests this fine evening. They are former Norwich City Head of Content and Programme Editor, Dan Brigham.
Hello, Michael.
And we also have City fan and On The Ball's official lawyer, which immediately makes her a vitally important member of the pod, given there's always a risk we'll defame someone. It's Susannah George.
Hi.
There she is. Hello, guys. Hello, everyone out there. Welcome to this week's podcast. Thanks for joining us. Dan, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Michael. Yeah, I've had to put the big light on for the first time this season, which to do this podcast, which probably marks the start of the season proper, I think, doesn't it now?
Oh, yes. It's always a big moment when the clocks go back, I think, because that's when you leave Carrow Road on a Saturday, but it's dark. That's always quite a big moment. Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's a bit like Norwich turning the floodlights on a Saturday at home to West Brom.
I mean, nowhere near is my lighting as light as the new lights at Carrow Road, though, which are, well, it's kind of Close Encounters of the Third Kind-esque, isn't it? It's so bright when it lands.
Burning your face.
Although you don't get to see them, do you, Michael? Because you're in the City stand in the press box, so you don't get to see how light they are from elsewhere in the ground.
No, I'm convinced I remember the first home game, which was the cup game that wasn't Bournemouth. It was the one before that, which was Birmingham. I remember now, seamless. And within the first 15 minutes, I was like, what are these lights? It's burning my retina. They are burning my retinas. And I just thought it was me being oversensitive. But since then, everyone inside Carrow Road has basically felt the same. So we just assume that they're perfectly safe. And it's just fine. So we'll see how we get on after a full season of them, I suppose. Susannah, how are you?
I'm good. I'm still pretty happy about after Blackpool, to be honest. And then we go again tomorrow. So very elated.
Can't get enough of the football. Well done for getting to Blackpool and enjoying that trip, of which we will speak to in a moment. For those of you watching us live on your chosen social media platform, we also want to hear from you during the course of the podcast. It can be on absolutely anything. Haven't come up with any topics this week, so throw us topics, ask us anything you wish, and we'll pick apart those questions as we go through the podcast. And if you want to contribute anything to the pods or the future pods, but are not listening live, that's okay. Have no fear. Simply email us with your story or comment or whatever it is we want to say. The email address is twitterkers, Twitter, KERS, @icloud.com. Twitterkers @icloud.com. I tell you what, let's crack on, shall we, with this week's headline act. Which, of course, is some club football, which had felt, we'd missed club football over the course of international football because international football isn't as good, let's be honest. So we welcomed back the club football, and we welcomed it back with Norwich City winning 1-0 in Blackpool. The sort of result and performance, Dan, that is the mark of promotion. A game where we're not going to remember anything about it in probably another 12 hours' time.
Yeah, well, this podcast almost becomes sort of mark of posterity now, doesn't it, about this season? Because there have been already, you don't want to start on a negative note, but already a lot of games that are very forgettable. But
I don't remember anything that's happened this year.
I suddenly had a sort of panic before joining this. I really have no recollection of the game before the international break, which I think applies to most of the games this season. But equally, then I thought, well, it applies to most of the games in the Championship in 2021. Obviously, we weren't there then because of lockdown. But what we're doing is winning really forgettably, which is, as you say, the mark of champions, isn't it?
Is it?
What we still don't know, though, is whether the way we're winning games is going to be sustainable, or whether it is a kind of mark that we're not going to be, when we come up against teams around us over the next month, whether we're going to be found out a little bit. I think against Blackpool, particularly after we scored, we kind of saw in a 20-minute spell how good we can be in this division and should have been streets ahead. But again, in the second half, we sort of let Blackpool play themselves back into it again. So once again, like we've been saying for most of the season, we've seen both the best sides of Norwich City Football Club and the worst sides of Norwich City Football Club this season.
It's absolutely. I mean, Susannah, you went. How did you enjoy being at Blackpool? Did you enjoy the experience? It was a long way. What was it like being in the away end?
It was. I think there's been a lot of videos going around. It was phenomenal. Speaking of forgettable games, I cannot actually tell you anything remarkable that happened in the last 15 minutes because we were all having such a good time. And also the rain was pelting down, so we didn't see a whole lot anyway, but everyone was just jumping. There was just limbs everywhere. You were lucky if you got to see anything going on, but we really just didn't care, which is really weird when you're 1-0 down, because those last sort of 15 minutes are normally quite tetchy in terms of, whether you're going to hang on to it. There was no concern. We were all just having an absolutely brilliant time. The drum really sort of just kept us going. I think we actually sang the same song for the last 15 minutes, which I think annoyed Blackpool.
Yes, you did. The press box was literally next to the away fans, which is kind of lovely. I did kind of enjoy that. I remember that from Blackpool in 2014 when we went last. We're not normally there. Normally we're in the middle of a home stand because we're on the halfway line along a touch line, and that's not normally where you put away fans. So we're normally in the midst of just home fans or just empty seats in the Championship. It's amazing how empty the space is around a press box, especially if we're very high up. and there were no fans to the entire right-hand side of us, but all we had were the Norwich fans bang on the left, which, as I said, was great. Made it quite difficult to get to the interviews after the game because all of the away fans had to kind of leave first. But as you said, Susannah, it was 50 minutes of a song I don't think I've heard Norwich fans sing very much, but the words are very straightforward. I mean, you can give us a rendition if you want, Susannah, but all I have is the dun, 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 and that's still going on in my head now, I think.
Yeah, no, it was good. I actually had never heard that song before, but I definitely know it now.
I can't remember what the words. It's something about they're
when
on
I
Twitter,
was young,
aren't they?
I follow the NCFC, the teams for me, I think.
Yeah, 4 lines. Well, I mean, barely one sentence. It's fine. I think everyone will be able to sing it. It'll be interesting because ultimately, let's be honest here, Dan, one song of 4 lines, probably about 12 words and a drum beat on repeat for 50 minutes is kind of better than nothing, which is what we've occasionally had at Carrow Road, or indeed booze. So which I guess it's interesting because I love British and English crowds, especially for how engaged they are in the football. But if there is that sort of slightly broken atmosphere element, which we've obviously discussed in the past, then you are better off just having a repetitive, monotonous chant going on in the background.
Yeah, well, it's worked for a lot of pop music over the years, hasn't it? And what I suppose the last season in the Premier League, away fans, we had nothing to sing about particularly. The season before that was lockdown. So maybe there's a realization that although not everyone is entirely happy with some of the performances, the fact we are winning lots of games makes going away, watching your team win, worthwhile. And Norwich fans haven't really experienced that for 2 years. So maybe it was, I mean, I wasn't there on Saturday, but maybe that sort of collective sense that, well, we should just really enjoy this. While the times are good, which they are at the moment, we should really, really make sure we enjoy them.
Shane Jones has been in touch. Shane says that is on Facebook. Apologies if you're watching on Twitter. I can't see your Twitter comments, but on YouTube and Facebook, I can indeed. The drum in the away end was very good. Let's just hope when we are back at home, we haven't got to grace a man. Got to grace a man on a bit of scaffolding behind a big screen with a drum. Get him in the stands. Well, that's obviously a long-running debate, but I suppose it helps when you're winning. I don't know. Maybe if Norwich had been 1-0 down for 70 minutes, that drum might have been like a drill in everyone's head. Who knows? But it's a nice position at least to be in from here. I did write. Well, I've written 2 bits on the Athletic recently. One is on Aaron Ramsey. So let's have that as the first point. I spoke to him after the game on Saturday, and but what struck me was how happy he was. Absolutely beaming. He was happy. He was fully ingrained in what it was to, and obviously he knows that this is a good move for his career, especially if Norwich go and do something special this season. But just in clearly how he felt about it and how much he wanted it and how much he was enjoying it, which was really good to see. And I feel like I owe him a slight apology because he was, and I'm sure I've said this on the podcast, he was the player where I was like, I'm not really sure about this. The one where I thought it's difficult to, want, and probably the scars of last season, it's difficult to want a lone player who's clearly highly talented from another team to develop here, because we kind of need to deal with this ourselves and get our own players going. But he does seem a really lovely lad, and he is about as good as we've got attacking wise. I would say in that sort, in those forward midfield role, he's dangerous. Dan, he looks after the ball, and he is really threatening, and he makes things happen, even if he maybe drifts in and out of a game. There is some end product.
I think he's creating was it in your piece actually I read this, that he's creating the most chances per game in the Championship at the moment. I think we initially saw him sort of out on the who else is writing about Norwich apart from you, obviously? We initially saw him on the left at the start of the season. I think we've seen him as a completely different player when he's played in that more of a number 10 central role that he has, and he looks much more effective in that number 10 role. He seems to have that ability to link up play between back and front really easily. That maybe, say, Dowell or Cantwell don't have that kind of ability, that sort of innate ability that Ramsey has. He's got that little bit of extra pace as well. And aside from his, excellent, technique and his ability on the ball, I think himself and Nunez and the likes of Liam Gibbs are really important this season, because a lot of our players are going through a third tilt at winning the Championship, which like it or not, as much as you want to put into it, sometimes that as a collective can hold you back a little bit because these people have won the championship twice. So having players like Nunez and Gibbs and Ramsey just kind of have it being fresh at it and seemingly really enjoying being out there on the pitch is absolutely crucial in a really long season, I think, as well.
I mean, some Aston Villa fans, Susannah, have picked up on that sort of slight reticence from Norwich fans about why Aaron Ramsey was joining and what he was going to deliver. I mean, do you sense that that's eased a bit much more now?
I think so. I mean, I personally was really interested to see Aaron Ramsey just because we can pretty much pin his inclusion down to Dean Smith. That is quintessentially a Dean Smith signing, and I think that was what we couldn't have last season, and so we really wanted him to do well because I think that helps kind of get behind Dean Smith, because I know still very 50-50 I think with a lot of people on how he's doing, but the fact that he's coming good and that well, not coming good, but the fact that we're seeing what he can do and how good he is really, it's good, and it really does speak for Dean Smith as a manager, and I think it shows that he knows what he needs to do with this squad, that he's really making it his own now. I mean, obviously this is the time to be making his own from the summer, but he didn't get to have that kind of freedom in January, signing people he needed and wanted, and this is sort of his test really, and it's going well, thankfully.
Exactly. And it's a beautiful segue into the other question, which I was going to bring up, which is again from another piece I wrote, because all I do is sit here and plug my pieces really on The Athletic. That's my job. But, it was a column about whether Dean Smith deserves a bit more credit for what he's doing. And there's a lot of focus on the style and whether the football is any good, Dan, which is an argument I'm kind of struggling with, to be honest, because I think Norwich are showing good things in good phases, and they've been slothers. And as you said, we'll talk about in a bit, we're really going to see where that leads to over the next month, because there's some cracking games coming up. But the guy is managing a big group of players and a team that's won 7 of their last 8 games. In terms of producing a functional football that is working. And I suppose how I think he explains things pretty well around games as well and what he's doing. So I guess maybe the things that Norwich fans are missing are the things maybe they miss about Daniel Farke, but no one talks about Daniel Farke when he loses 5-1 with Wigan back at the weekend, I suppose. Yeah,
it's odd. It started off on an odd footing with Dean Smith, because if you just take away Norwich City, his Brentford side were excellent, play really great little connected football in the way that we know Brentford can play. And his Aston Villa side played really sort of different style of football to Brentford, but got back to front really quickly through, and their had really excellent midfield, and played good football. So there should be. Some people kind of thought he came in as a bit of a sort of English dinosaur, a bit of a Sean Dyche, and he's not that at all. He plays, his teams play good football, and we've seen that in bursts throughout this season. We've seen that in 20, 30-minute spells. We saw that against Blackpool after we scored, particularly as well. So I think he's had a bit of disrespect that is undeserved. But what I would say is there are moments in games and across games where it does look like an 11 that isn't coached as well as it was under Daniel Farke. But that's not necessarily a bad reflection on Dean Smith. Daniel Farke is an excellent coach at championship level. Not everyone's going to be as good as Daniel Farke at coaching players to play really on the front foot, possession-based football. What Dean Smith can do, he can do stuff and coach stuff that Daniel Farke can't as well. He's got his own strengths that Farke didn't have. And what I would also say is he's without Buendia, but also trying to work out his best 11 still. We still flick between a 4-2-3-1 and a 4-3-3 quite a lot. Whether that's going to continue throughout the season, because Dean Smith wants to do that, wants to sort of line us up slightly different in games, which again is a potential positive as well. I don't know, but when we click, we look slicker than pretty much any team in the Championship, maybe barring a few times I've seen Burnley. When we click, we just look, again, way too good for this division.
I mean, it's interesting because ultimately they probably would look not as well coached as Daniel Farke, because Dean Smith is working on on the way he likes to do things is to give his players more control. I spoke to him about this at Colney during the press conference this morning, because there is clearly an element where the head coach and the coaches have to step in and make changes and spot the obvious and lead the team to where they need to go. It's not like they're just leaving them to work it all out on their own, but they are allowing the players the room to solve their own problems on the pitch. They're not as they're not as restrictive, I guess, in their coaching of how they're going to do things, and that sort of automatic patterns, I guess. So in that element, they probably would look a little bit more ramshackled, and there probably is a degree of trying to be more direct and then create things a bit more sporadically than maybe some of the, routine passing patterns that Daniel Farke was trying to implement, and maybe stricter elements. But also, it's interesting how some, I don't know how many people in Daniel Farke's first season thought the football was really good. I think a lot of them thought it was really dull and actually just doesn't work. And they were saying that even though actually the problem wasn't that the football was dull, it's that they weren't taking their chances. No one was sitting in there going, God, this team is great. They're brilliant. They create so many chances. I'm really enjoying it. Obviously, they don't score any of them, but that's fine. No one says that. They only judge it by whether those chances are being taken and the team is being productive. So I think it's a tricky debate, and I know some people don't like what they're watching, and we can have that debate lots, and that's fine because it's football and everyone's entitled to the two different opinions. But I think there needs to be a realism about the job he's done so far, but also, I guess, the fact that we are so early in the season. Because one thing that struck me before kickoff, Susannah, on Saturday was that the last time Norwich were there in 2014, they were looking very good. They won 3-1. Everything was great. Neil Adams was in charge, and by the January he had resigned, and but for an inspired appointment of Alec Neil, you don't really know what the rest of that season might have looked like. Likewise, when Norwich were relegated and then had their bid to return in 2016-17, that was another season where it started off incredibly well, and then one result spooked them pretty much, and it all unraveled again, and you're sort of chasing your tail a bit. So I guess it's, however so good the start has been, it's still really early.
I guess so. It is early, but then it's still, just the stats just made that eight unbeaten. I mean, the only two teams in the top two tiers that have done that are Sheffield, and by the way, they just drew to Birmingham, who we beat, and they were quite a formidable side, so that's good. And Man City, and I mean, we're comparing ourselves to that. It's pretty good going, and yes, it might not last, but that's why you try and take results and try and carry on this streak as long as you can, because it can disappear. It might be in a couple of weeks' time. It might be when if we get promoted.
Love it. I was listening to the radio and someone said that Manchester City have been cruising in first gear. They've dropped points where it's been a bit needless because it's just been a bit easy for them, and then they've been a bit sloppy at times, but obviously they've been very good when it's clicked. I'm not saying that Norwich are doing the same thing, but certainly the themes are similar, because I think most of those things I'd use to describe Norwich. Right, which I don't know if anyone saw any fun questions. Let me see if there were any other nice comments that we can bring up on here. Oh, Alex has chipped in. Do I prefer the TIFO podcast or the On the Ball podcast? Why make me choose between two, things that are amazing, Alex, is what I say. I love doing both. I would happily do them all day, all the time, but I think everyone would get sick of me. Never mind what was being done. So thank you for that, Alex.
Were you late for that one as well, Michael?
How dare you? I don't know what you're talking about. No, I was bang on time, but I had to get to London, so that was a travesty, really. Shane Jones, at this stage of the season so far, you can answer this, guys. Who is your player of the season? I love this question because it pops up at regular intervals during the course of the season. Will it change? Who will it be now? Player of the season? No sitting on the fence, unless you're
for me, it's Nunes, because I think he knots the performances together much better than from deep, much better than anyone else has. And I think him playing essentially without a holding midfielder for much of the season and still having as big an impact as he has is very special. But also a shout out to Grant Hanley, who gets a lot of unfair stick, but has been excellent this season again.
Love that. Susannah?
I don't know. No, I think before he got injured, I'd have said Liam Gibbs, but then he got injured. I thought he was great. I just thought he was great. I don't. Oh, this is really hard. I don't know. I have my man of the match from Saturday, but the player of the season so far.
Well,
I think I've done quite well. I don't know. I still also really like Max. I think Max is always so consistent. We rely on him so heavily. He's played God knows how many games, just always started, always played the full 90 minutes. I think for that stamina and to always perform, I think just really well. Maybe Max, I'd say.
Who was your player of the match at Blackpool?
Tim Krul. I was surprised that he wasn't put forward because he made some cracking saves. There were really three. I think they had 18 shots, 6 on target. 3 of them, I think 2 of them came quite close succession in sort of the 72nd minute. I thought they were brilliant. And the thing is, we were only 1-0 up. Any one of those goes in, the whole game suddenly changes. And I know a lot of people have been sort of suggesting that Angus should be brought in instead. I love Angus as a player, but I think then you've got to give credit to him when he keeps us in the game, and I'd say that he did. So
he was in the Who Scored Team of the Week, wasn't he? Championship Team of the Week, Tim Krul, which blew my mind because I don't remember any of his saves, weirdly, but obviously he made a few. But none of them were stuck in my head.
Susannah was there. So
and I was watching it on my laptop with a feed with the Blackpool commentary as well, which was quite insightful to hear the opposition comms.
Yes, please talk to me about this because I know obviously loads of people who follow Norwich and supporters would have been fully exposed to I Follow commentary a lot, but I haven't really ever heard it because I'm normally at the game, so I don't get to take this in. So, can you remember any gems, Dan?
One of the joys of the lockdown season, one of the few joys of the lockdown season, was having to listen to opposition commentators talk about Norwich City, which went from between like September and December was grudging respect, and then in January when we hit our stride went to just purring about us and saying how great we were, which is often a slight contrast to how we talk about our own team. They don't see the little quibbles we have, they just see a team playing really well, and that was a welcome return on Saturday to after we scored. That their desperation for the halftime whistle to go was something to behold. They just wanted desperately to get in at half time. They thought we were playing fantastic football, but that was kind of bested by the fact they'd really disliked the referee. I mean, they really had it in for the referee. They sarcastically called him one of the elite referees. By the end, they were calling him Mr. Coot, which I think is probably quite a passive-aggressive way to describe a referee. And by the injury time, they said if there's any justice in the world, Blackpool would get an equaliser. Not because they deserved one, but because the ref had been so bad in their eyes. He had a bit of a poor game, but on for both teams, I thought as well. But it was good. It's good to hear neutrals or even opposition fans talking really positively about Norwich City.
I thought David Coote was a referee who looked like he was used to refereeing with VAR, if I'm honest. And it was really interesting how that then does clearly affect them slightly in terms of how they deal with the game, I think. I don't know how there wasn't a red card on El Hernandez early in the game because there was a tackle that literally sent him spinning in the air. But there we go. That's all I'm going to say on that. Right, brilliant. Well, I think that does that very nicely. What I like to do now is take us through, and I haven't got a sting for this bit, so apologies. Take us through our things we are not going to talk about. So we are not going to talk about all these things. And you kind of teed up one of them, Susannah, because I've got Tim Krul and the World Cup, because that happened over our break from podcasts. In that Tim Krul doesn't appear to be now going to the World Cup because he didn't turn up for a penalty assessment session, they're my words, that Louis van Gaal called for all his goalkeepers. I mean, I'm guessing Tim kind of went, you want me to do what? No. Have you not been watching me for the last year? I'm fine. You know how I can do it. And so Louis didn't like that. And now Tim's not going to the World Cup, which, I mean, seems remarkably petty, Susannah, now that, Tim's not going to the World Cup, unless he maybe will do. Maybe he will do in the end and everyone will make up. Who knows?
I mean, you've got to, if it's your job to turn up training, you've got to turn up and do things. But we all know he can do good things with penalties. But to be honest, the fewer players of ours, as much as it's a great joy to see them play on international stage, because it's of where it's coming in the season, the fewer opportunities for injury, the better. So I keep him well away. I keep everyone away.
I just think Dan Tim maybe got a better offer. He's like got 2 weeks in the Seychelles booked or something. I don't know. That's like
like a player getting their like 8th yellow card just before Christmas, so they can get suspended for it. I mean, the players literally say it as well after they retire, don't they? Seems to go on a lot. That does. Did Josh Sargent play? This passed me by entirely. Did he get any minutes? Do you know, for the States?
Yes, he did. He played. I think he came on in the first game. I think he did feature at some point in the second game. I think the US men's national team were having a bit of a meltdown because they lost to Japan, and they're a bit worried that they're not going to win the World Cup. So we'll see how that goes. Loads of preparation time. They're going to have at least 4 days with the squad together before they then kick off. And I mean, it is going to be hilarious. Like even like Norwich stop playing in the Championship, and then like the following weekend, England are playing, and it's they're not going to have any time together. It's just going to be absolutely hilarious.
So within a week of us watching Josh Sargent at Carrow, potentially we'll be seeing him against England in.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah. Well, we're all Norwich fans for whoever they play for. I mean, I have a feeling he was the only Norwich player selected for a World Cup squad during the current international break. So I would say he's most likely to be Norwich's only player at the World Cup, Josh Sargent. Just let that sink in for a moment. Unless Przemysław Płacheta gets called up by Poland, but that seems unlikely.
Doesn't really affect us either, does it, if he does?
Well, no, true. I think he has been injured as well, bless him. What else are we not going to talk about? Mark Attanasio is now officially a director. That's been registered with Companies House. Someone did ask me whether that means he's passed the fit and proper persons test, which does have to be undertaken. The honest answer from me on that is I don't know, but I was kind of told it wouldn't be an issue anyway, to be honest. So I don't expect that to come up and be a problem. But he is officially a Norwich City director as far as Companies House are concerned. Read the piece. I wrote it. It's on The Athletic. Go read that. Isaac Hayden is out again for a couple of weeks. I spoke to Dean Smith about this today. The annoying thing about this, I think, is that each time Norwich try and train him on to be ready to appear, his knee isn't coping with it. I mean, Dean Smith did say that Isaac Hayden had been training last season, but I just wonder, Dan, like if he wasn't in the squad and he wasn't actually training to play, is that going to be the same as what he's trying to do at Norwich and train to be in the squad? Because he knew he wasn't going to play last season. That's the thing. Yeah,
well, we've seen it a lot, haven't we? With knee injuries, they're kind of unpredictable because you don't know. I mean, I'm no physio, but you don't seem to know they don't seem to know how they're going to react to heavy training, and not just running, but sort of when they get involved in team training as well. And that aligned with the fact we've had zero luck in buying central midfielders usually, or holding midfielders outside of Skippy, obviously, means that we'll probably never see him this season. But as Susannah mentioned earlier, Liam Gibbs has looked outstanding, well, really, really good since when he's come in. And it was great to see him back, actually. I thought that was, having him back could be across October with 7 more games to play, could be really, really important for us.
It would be interesting if he starts actually against Reading.
Dean Smith said to you that he was near a start already, is that right? Or maybe that was, yeah.
Yeah, I think they felt it was a bit too soon for Reading, but now he's played, what did he play, the last 15, 20 minutes, wasn't it, probably? So that and a couple of days extra training, he might be then ready, you think, if he's come through.
I mean,
okay.
We can't pin all our sort of hopes on him, but I'm absolutely pinning all my hopes on him for that he is going to be the holding midfielder that we need. Actually, just popped into my head that he reminds me a bit of Harrison Reed, who is also a sort of really busy, excellent little defensive midfielder who can neatly knit play together as well. I think he's got some Harrison Reed vibes.
I mean, you have to pin all your hopes on him because at the moment he is the defensive midfielder. So that is literally it. I don't think there's anything else interesting from the international break. There was something slightly interesting in that Slaven Bilic is now Watford manager. For anyone who missed that, Watford sacked Rob Edwards having said they would give him all the time in the world to develop the nope, they just sacked him. So that's that. And Watford will be Watford, and then they won 4-0 at Stoke. So they probably won't lose another game and will go up. So obviously it works for them. That's exciting. Anything else? Anything you don't want to talk about, Susannah? Putting you bang on the spot.
I was just thinking about all the managers that have been sacked, because isn't it a third of the Championship managers have already been sacked this season?
Yes. Well, they've left as well, because Paul Ward is no longer Rotherham manager.
Yeah.
He's at Derby. Seems. So yes, it is a changing picture in the Championship as everyone panics. I think that's what we can ascertain from all that. Right. In that case, was there anything else on this? No, I tell you what, let's just crack on. With get you any more questions in if you got them. Let's bring in Motti.
This is almost fantasy football.
That's right, it is, John. Almost fantasy football. What could be more fantastical than going to Reading on a Tuesday night before welcoming Preston North End, the goal machines that are Preston North End, to Carrow Road on Saturday? This is, of course, all part of Outrageous October. I've just dubbed it in my head, where Norwich have got lots of games, 8 of them. I was slightly worried that if Norwich did lose to Blackpool, it would make the rest of these games quite difficult. But as it happens, they've won, so that's a decent start. Reading are in third. They've also got Watford coming up. That's quite a tricky one. Obviously, Luton just starting to find some form. That's at Carrow Road. This is all in October. They then go to Sheffield United, who are the leaders. They have more points than Norwich. And then Burnley, who are currently 4th, I think. And they are pretty decent as well. And then it's Alec Neil to round off the month. So that is... that's a lot, isn't it, Susannah? That is a lot for a month.
Yeah, I think you've just got to look at the one game coming up, because otherwise it looks a little bit terrifying. But everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's got a horrific, time of it. And actually, I was looking at it and I was thinking, if we want Norwich to, get promoted in the dream, play in Europe, you do tend to have about 8 or 9 fixtures a month. So this is good practice for that. Yeah.
I love that. Great preparation for the Europa League. Happy days. This is how quickly football changes. I love it. Reading, Dan, are they any good? Cards on the table. I'm looking forward to this game. It's going to be a good challenge. We're going to go in going, right, this lot of third. This is going to be a proper test. Norwich should probably lose. It's really difficult trip away from home. But there's a bit in the back of my head that's saying they should probably not be third.
They're an odd team, aren't they? They're managed by a guy who had not managed for 8 years, who is also playing his son in the side, which feels very Sunday League football. And they've been hammered 3 or more goals 3 or 4 times this season already, but yet are still somehow in third. And it's sort of similar vibes to was it the Alex Neil Alan Irvine Championship season when Reading got a penalty shootout away from getting promoted, and we beat them 7-1 that season. We're absolutely dreadful. Every time I saw them that season, dreadful. And it feels similar this time as well. They've been, beaten by Rotherham and beaten by a couple of other large sides. So it does feel like when they come up against a decent side, then they've got a big crumble potential in them, I think. Having said that, just setting ourselves up for a fall here and losing. But, I mean, come on, it's Reading. Like,
God, clip that one out.
Does anyone know any Reading supporters?
Yes, I know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't be mean.
I Carrow Road when we beat them.
It always feels like to me a team that I never meet anyone who supports them from. A bit like Tories. You never meet a Tory, but they've got to be there somewhere, haven't they?
Well,
and it always feels the same with Reading fans as well.
Is that why you no longer live in Norfolk? Talking about Reading crumble, yes, I guess it could be that, or it could be. I was going to do some sort of custard joke, but then I've just tried to say it. I thought that doesn't work, and then I stopped halfway, and now I'm talking about it. But something about Reading, do a crumble, or you'll end up with custard on your face, Dan. Which is maybe because I didn't have any dessert, and I'm still hungry tonight.
Do you normally have dessert most midweek?
Oh, every day. Every day is a dessert day.
Lunch and dinner?
Yeah, and breakfast, just a sea of desserts, which has completely lost my track of what I was going to talk about. Reading have been beaten quite heavily away from home. I think you mentioned Rotherham. I think they lost by a few goals at Sheffield United as well. They do have the best home record so far in the Championship, I think.
Didn't they lose at home to Rotherham 4-0?
Oh, maybe, but maybe that was their only defeat, and therefore they've still got more points at home than everyone else. Let me check. Sorry, Susannah, go.
No, I was going to say they might have the best home record so far, but this could be very reminiscent of all the Spurs fans getting excited on Saturday. But I think we are unbeaten against them in our last 7 meetings with them. I think
that sounds plausible. I can't remember the last time.
So yeah, I think we won 5 of them. So and I think that's the longest sort of unbeaten sort of run of in the history of the team. So we're on form technically to carry it on. But like those sort of things, as you say, Dan, always set you up for a fall if you start shouting things like that. So
there's a lot to clip out now.
Indeed.
They lost 3-0 at home to Sunderland. Sorry, not Rotherham. Very recently.
Still, I mean, that is the only points they've dropped at home, and also they've only conceded 6. Well, I say they've conceded 6 at home, so 3 of them came in the one game. They won 5 out of 6, 15 points. Only 2 with 15 points out of 6 games played, but not everyone has played 6 games at home. So there we go. Well, that's exciting. Dean Smith did pick up on how big and strong and powerful they are, especially from set pieces. That made me wince a little bit. So that will be an interesting one to keep an eye on. Then the game on Saturday, which is probably the poor relation to the rest of the month, it has to be said. But Preston at home, I mean, Preston don't like goals, do they? At all. They've scored 1 goal. Is that also? No, hang on. That's only their home record. Hold on a moment. Preston have scored 3 goals in 11 games. They've conceded 4 goals. They've drawn 7 of their 11 games, and I would guess most of them have been 0-0.
So they're basically Brighton of the Championship.
Yeah, not nearly so exciting.
So Reading have not drawn any, have they? So we're going from playing a team that have drawn none to a team that seem to draw all the time.
Oh yes, because as soon as someone today said Reading haven't drawn a game, I was like, so that's what we're going to get then. So that's my prediction for Tuesday night: is a draw, 0-0, maybe not 0-0, maybe 0-0, 0-0, draw. You can go, and now I've made a prediction. You guys can make a prediction because we never make predictions. Who wants to go first with their prediction?
I'm going to say
Susannah. Go on, Susannah.
I think 3-1 to Norwich. Or sorry, will be 1-3, I suppose. But yeah.
Reading 3.
Norwich 3.
Sorry.
Norwich
Reading
3.
1-3 Norwich in Tifo style. Love that. Dan?
Well, boringly, I was going to go for the same score, so I'll up the positivity and say 3-0 instead. I think
another clean sheet.
Yeah.
Another clean sheet. Well, that was exciting. Right, let's. So there we go. Norwich will be absolutely fine. They're going to have a whale of a time, and they're going to win against Reading. So that is exciting. Let's have a look at what other messages we've got, and we'll round off the podcast. Yoddy Toddy. Hello, Yoddy Toddy. With the raft of games in October, should we see Hugo getting some games? Susannah? Oh, fingers crossed, Susannah.
I really like Hugo. I think he's, especially if we're going to start O'Neill as well and not have him as a bit of energy. I think Jordan just like to come on and just absolutely just goes for it. And depending on who else is still left on the pitch, it can open things up for Pookie or Sargent if everyone's focusing on the ball of energy that's just powering through. And he's just a bit, he just doesn't mind. He's sort of like the Grant Hanley going forward. He just goes through everything. You wouldn't want to have him running at you. So I kind of like that.
Beautiful work. That's grand.
The vision of Jordan Hugo just running at you now that's going to be nightmarish. That is.
I'll sleep well on that. It would be good to see. I feel like he wouldn't let anyone down if he came on, and I think he would be chipping in. And he probably does need the game time before Adamida is fit, I guess, as well. So
it would be nice, as we have so many games, maybe, and whether this is sacrilege or not, to give Pookie maybe a little rest occasionally and have Sargent down the middle again, because he was effective there. and it means he doesn't have to play out on the right, where he is less effective as well. If you want to balance, if you want to keep players fit and want to sort of keep them happy as well, then wouldn't be against seeing Sargent occasionally giving a run there.
Which, in fairness, he did for the last 20 minutes or so on Saturday to rest Teemu a bit, and was happy with what Josh did. So there's always that option as well. I mean, that's something for Teemu to get 20 minutes rest, to be honest, because he hasn't normally had that in recent seasons. Gerald Churchard, hello Gerald. What is the latest on the left back situation? Where do you think our weak links are in the formation? So guys, you can answer that one. But the left back situation at the moment, obviously Sam Byram is starting and playing and looked a bit more up to speed, I thought, on Saturday compared to before the international break. Dimi Yanulis is on the grass, is the official term, which would mean he's running and testing and building up the strength in the joint, but he's not in team training yet. And I would guess he's probably still a week or two away from that, which then probably means he's then another further week or two away from actually playing and certainly starting. So that's just me putting those figures on. I'm guessing that we'll see, but maybe we'll see him back this month. That would be great. But that's probably the soonest we will see him. We'll have to see. And the others aren't anywhere near. Sam McCallum is still in a boot and he will be post World Cup. Jakob Sørensen is out of his boot, I think, but is a bit further off. So I think that's where all the left backs are. Weak links in the formation. Surely there aren't any weak links in the formation, Susannah.
Maybe. No, I mean, it's hard to criticise when we're, I'd say, unbeaten. I would like to see a little bit more of an assured midfield, and it's something we didn't really have last season as much as we'd like. But I think we're getting there. I think I'd like to see Todd back. I think some of his through balls are phenomenal, and they seem to actually get where they need to go. Which sometimes we seem to be hoofing balls in the air, not knowing where the players are going to be, and they're not going anywhere. And we're giving the ball away quite a lot. I'd just like to see a little bit more, I don't want to say intelligence behind it, just a bit more of a thought process before just whacking the ball forward. And I think Todd does that a little bit. Because I was just watching, sorry, I'm going on a side tangent. I was watching the highlights of the West Ham Wolves game and Skamaka's goal. He actually provided his own sort of ball to Bound and then got in position. Like, that's the kind of forward thinking we need, like someone midfield to not just hoof it up that way and go, well, that's my job done, to also then be sort of trying to figure out where it's going to go, who it's going to, and where it's going to go after that. I think Todd can provide that. I mean, that's, I think, was the intention after Wendy left. And I think that's what we need, because I think that's what Pookie needs as well. He's sometimes not getting through balls he needs.
That's a lovely point, actually. Todd missed Saturday through a small thigh injury, but they were hopeful that he will be back training today and tomorrow. There were a few times where Teemu Pukki was played in and then no one really busted gut to get back up in support of him, and that was incredibly frustrating, because you cannot just give Teemu the ball with 4 defenders and then just sort of sit and watch. You've got to get up in support. So work on that, please. Norwich, unless you have any weak links in the formation, Dan, you want to highlight? It will be interesting if, say, Liam Gibbs comes in, who doesn't.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, obviously left back's the weak link through necessity at the moment, although I thought Byram was good against Blackpool and was good against West Brom, especially second half. He feels maybe he's getting his rhythm back as well. He was out for a long time. But yeah, it's central midfield, isn't it? It's interesting. If Gibbs comes in a 4-2-3-1, is there a role for Kenny in that? I'm not sure there is. If it's a 4-3-3, there's probably a role for Kenny in that. So interesting to see where Smith goes with that. Now Gibbs is back. And as I mentioned before, I'm not a fan of Sargent up on the right. I think we lose a bit of control with him there. I don't think it does him any favours, because it's not his natural position. And I don't think it does the team many favours either, because it's not his natural position. And someone like Dowell or Sinani is better suited to that sort of wide right role, I think, as well. It does still feel a little bit like, and I think I've said it before in the podcast, when Neil Adams would play Jerome and Graben up top rather than just one of them, which is what Alex Neil did when he came in, would just play one of them. It feels like, so, and I can get it, he's a goal scorer. It's nice to have more goal scorers on the pitch. He's physical as well. He wins headers, etc. So I get it, but I don't think we get the most out of him when he's playing wide right.
Indeed, fair point. A couple of little updates. So Alex says there was also a large march from the Manchester pub to the ground at Blackpool, helped to build up the atmosphere before the match. That's good. Glad they got to do that. I don't know if there's something similar at Reading. But James Bloomfield has chipped in. The away pub will be the world turned upside down at Reading. That's how I'm reading that. I assume that is the name of a pub near the Midfield Stadium. I don't know of many pubs near there, but there we go. Maybe you have to cross the M4 to get there. Let's hope not. The City Elite, which I saw them post a video with basically in the background. And the drum will be on the march, but sadly the drum is not allowed into the stadium at Reading. So there we go. You'll just have to go in your heads. And it does bode the question, what happens to the drum from the march to during the game? I think I have to sort of stick. Could they drum on the drum outside the stadium but still be heard in it?
That's a sad job, isn't it? Having to be the guy that stands outside still drumming while your mates have gone inside.
I mean, I'm guessing they'll just sort of stick it by the side of the road. Who knows? Right, I think we are done. Oh, there was one. Yeah, there's two. Let's do quick ones actually. Simon Copperwheat asked this as well. Well, no, Simon Copperwheat asks, will Pookie get his century this season? Because of course, let's say it does need to be this season. He is chipping in with the goals now. What's he up to? 82.
Is he 82? Is he 2 off Fleck now, isn't he? I think.
Yeah.
But...
So he's got to get another 18.
Sure, why not then?
Yeah, he'll get there. Which then does bode the question from Adam Coulter: who will be our top goal scorer, Pookie or Sargent?
Depends how we're going to play them, doesn't it?
And
we're playing them both together. I think Pookie, if we let Sargent have a bit on his own, maybe he will.
You're saying it's literally in Dean Smith's power as to who is Norwich's top scorer this season. I like that.
Whoever it is, Norwich City is the winner, but it'll be Pookie, won't he, if he doesn't get injured, surely.
Well said, Dan. And finally, Simon Duarte. It was great to see the legends for a great cause last weekend, though I did miss out on a photo with my hero, Kevin Drinkle. I'm sorry, Simon. I hope that opportunity does come back, but it was the Football versus Dementia game with Ken Brown and, who was the other team? Names escaped me. Who was managing the other team? Paul Chick.
Paul Chick. It was in memory of Paul Chick, wasn't it?
Was in memory of Paul Chick? Sorry. Yes, that's right. So yeah, that sounded like a brilliant occasion. I hope everyone enjoyed it who was there, and it sounds like they'll be doing that again next year. So good on that, and I hope that all goes really well. Right, I think that is all of that, unless there's any other business. Anyone have any other business? Yes, Susannah. Any other business?
I mention Ballymumba because he's just been very player of the month for. I always get Plymouth and Portsmouth crossed over. But there we go. But he had that amazing game against Ipswich and scored that fabulous goal, and I would like him back. Yeah.
Well,
he's doing great.
Got a lengthy contract, Susannah. So
I know.
Happen, so that's
but it was nice to see him doing bits against Ipswich. So
brilliant. Dan, any other business?
No, I don't think so. Other than something I just saw on Twitter before this, nothing to do with Norwich City. But are you surprised that an NBA basketball court fits inside an 18-yard box in football? The whole court in basketball fits inside an 18-yard box.
Is that right?
That's true. Yeah.
I am surprised.
Quite easily as well.
I think that's the perfect definition of any other business. That I didn't know that was the case. Right. Well, on that note of absolute bamboozlement, I think we are done for another On the Ball Norwich City podcast. If you're yet to do so, make sure you subscribe via your podcast player of choice. The pod is available free for everyone on your usual player, and we will return to streaming. Oh, I read that without reading it. We are streaming the podcast live. Here we are, and we'll be doing that onwards, post width, for width. You can see the podcast live in video form on my social media channels, so have a search. I'm sure you'll find them. Ratings and reviews, wherever prompted, are always hugely appreciated. And if you want to get in touch with any questions or topic proposals, then just sling me a direct message on Twitter. The handle is at Michael J. Bailey, and hopefully I will pick it up, although there's lots of messages I haven't seen yet and will reply to. It's fine. As for this evening, a big thank you to our guest this evening. Susannah, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed Blackpool, and safe travels to Reading tomorrow.
Thank you.
Dan, thank you for your insight and NBA court size knowledge.
Thanks, Michael. Always a pleasure.
It is. It's been brilliant to have you on. We'll be back next Monday for another edition of the On the Ball podcast. But until then, all I'm left to say is never mind the danger.
This is almost fantasy football.
That's not the right thing. Hang on. Until next time, never mind the danger. And we're clear. And we are actually still live. That last mess up, by the way, does just remind me of my video verdict, where people generally thought I was drunk while I was doing it because my hair was flapping in the wind.
Were you not?
Well, I wasn't drunk. No, because I had to drive there and drive home. And I also, for some reason in my head, thought that Sheffield United were playing Reading. And it was only when I'd finished everything and got home, I double checked. It's like, oh, they're playing Birmingham. Why have I even thought that? Still don't know how I'd had that in my head. So between that and my hair flapping everywhere, I think everyone thought I was just having a really good time in Blackpool, but not that good a time. Anyway, I'm going to leave all this in because of the clip mock-up. So there we go. Have a lovely evening, everyone. Bye-bye. And that's how the podcast is going to end. We are still live. So everyone's here. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And I'm going to cut the broadcast off now, but we'll be back next Monday, I think, once I've booked that in, and it will all be great. So see you later. Everyone wave. Bye.